All right, so I'm going to go through a workflow starting from Revit into 3D Studio Max using a conceptual starting point. So I'm going to begin with the massing tool and do a it's actually fairly abstract kind of form that I'm going to be creating. So I'm just quickly fixing something up. And so I'm going to begin with a new project under the projects button, projects heading there, just by clicking new. It's obviously going to make a new file, and that's something I'm sure you are extremely familiar with. Right away though, I'm then going to go to the massing and site tool. So like I said, I'm going quickly, but hopefully you'll get a good understanding from this. So here I'm going to go to in-place mass, which essentially is making an in-place family, similar to what you've probably done with other families. And the name there, I'm just going to accept Mass 1. And then you can see I've got a modelling tool. Now, if you haven't seen this before, these are the modelling tools. In a regular family, you'll have things like extrusion, evolve, sweep, blend, all those basic modelling tools for solid modelling in Revit. These are different. So here I've got the regular shape tools. I'm going to just use the line tool, and I'm going to draw a basic kind of form that I want as the basis for my plan. So I'm going for kind of a fractured sort of space, so I want something that's a bit uneven. And so that might do. So fairly arbitrary kinds of lines I've drawn there, just trying to keep things not with all right angles. So just to make it a little bit interesting. And then it is all connected as a shape. So that's one difference you'll notice between this approach and the way you would have sketched normally, where all the lines come up as separate elements. Here they're going to be picked up as one shape, but if you want to get an individual line segment, just click again and it'll select just one edge at a time. So I'm going to nudge a few of these lines just to change that slightly. That might do actually. So I've got a very basic shape there, and I'm going to now switch to a 3D view, just using the default 3D view. And you can see again that shape. Again, when it's selected, it comes up as one element, and then you'll see on the ribbon there, you've got this Create Form button. So that actually replaces all of those other tools I mentioned before, extrusion, sweep, blend. This covers all of those tools, and it can do a lot more as well. So I'm going to just click on the top part of that button, which will make a form for me, using the shape that I already had selected. And so it knows, because it was a flat shape, that I wanted an extrusion then. And there are different ways you can let it know you want the other options, revolve and everything else. So I'll give you some ideas about that later. What I wanted to show you here though is that I've got now a gizmo, that little XYZ icon there with the red, green and blue arrows. It's called gizmo. And you can stretch any of those arrows just by clicking and dragging. Now I could also, as well as lifting it up using that blue arrow, use the one of the other arrows to skew this shape. That's something that you maybe would realise you can't do with the regular solids in Revit. I'll just undo that though and try something else. Instead of selecting the top surface, which I had before, I'm going to try selecting just one of these edges. And you'll see then that I can skew just that. So again, that's something that would be fairly tricky in Revit with the regular solids tools. You could use a blend, I suppose. But now I'm going to take it one step further and select another edge, and I'm going to use again the arrows there and stretch this down. So you can see how now I'm ending up with a reasonably complex little form from a very simple starting point, just by working with surfaces as well as edges, which I've been showing you so far. Now I'm going to go to a point. So each of these corner points has a vertex. And again, I'll get the same gizmo there. Handy little shortcut when you're working with these is the spacebar. So that'll switch between the regular orthographic gizmo and one that's following the angles of the surfaces that connect to it. Okay, now I actually want the orthographic one, so I'm going to switch to that with space, and now I can adjust the point there using the Z gizmo, and I just want to get a nice little peak there. So I've got this this form, and so I'm going to now maybe just do a bit more work to stretch this surface out here, and so I'll just pause this 1 second. Okay, so there we are. It's getting towards the sort of thing I was after. I'm just going to do a little bit more work and massage this into something that's going to work, I think, as a space. And then going into plan view again. Remember, I'm still working with a family, so it's just in-place modelling, as you would with other with other families. And then now I'm going to make another shape. So again, using the shape tools, you're probably pretty familiar with from other things. And I'm going to make a kind of just a rectangular sort of shape here. And then back to my 3D view. And again, I'm going to select that shape now. This time, when I go to that create form, I'm going to go to the down arrow and then void form. So then I'll bring this up so that it's intersecting, and really nice thing there, you get a preview of the intersection, which I think is pretty cool. So there we are, I've got this sort of void for my solid. And this is the basis for a lot of design work that you'll do. You know, often will have some conceptual starting point that's got no relationship to any form, but if you've got a spatial basis to your concept, then it's really important that you know how to then experiment with those forms and combine them in different ways to end up with a more complex form. So that's what this massing tool is all about. Lots of different ways of modelling, but I've just shown you, some ways of going from a simple solid using voids as well. I'm going to actually just change that void now slightly by using tab first to select it, and then again tab now, having that void selected should enable me to select one side of that void. Remember the shortcut space to flip to the different gizmo, and then I can just stretch that because I want a narrower void there. And now I want to select the whole void again, so I'll just use tab, tab to highlight it. Absolutely, yeah, sure. So I can go back to ground floor to make it a bit easier. And then, yeah, no problem, I'll just use that rotate tool right now. And so I might just move the base point to a point that would make sense, say the corner of that form. And starting with any base angle there, really should be okay. And bring that around. So yeah, no problem. So yeah, that actually could be okay. Let's see how it looks. So I'm going to finish that mass, which essentially is finishing the family. So I've got this sort of mass shape, which I now want to turn into a space.
How would you shape this?
Oh, I'm going to use a roof for that. So, I had to shape it. I'm using the massing tools. So you'll see, yeah. Right, so back to the massing and site tab. I've then got the model by face tools. So I will come back to that massing tool and give you lots of different examples with that. But with the wall tool now, wall by face it is, remember, I can just choose the kind of wall I want. I'm just going to stick with the generics for now, and then choose some faces. So how easy is that? And maybe if I use a curtain wall here, it'll make it a bit more interesting. So, well, they're no good. Let's go for a different one. I'm going to go with a curtain system and choose that face there. And so let's try maybe a roof by face up on the top here. Right, so I've got already a form there that's going to start to work, but let's take it a bit further. Going into an elevation view there, you can see I've got a couple of levels, but I want more. So I'm going to use the array tool and just turn off group and associate so I don't get a grouped array, and we'll make it say 5. Okay, so I've got some extra levels there. Now I can go back to 3D.
Wait, so how did you array and then what did you do? Did you create those levels and then
Array, I just use the array tool, yeah. I've turned off group and associate so they don't come up, grouped together afterwards. So you just have a go with that. Just as a tip there, if you want to try the array without group and associate, just remember you've got to put the number in on the options bar first, that's all. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my mass now, and you'll see we've got this mass floors tool, which will let me pick all of these levels. Yeah, like once you know it, but it's good to know how to do it the slow way as well. When you so don't be worried about. I mean, I learnt the slow way as well originally. So now I've got these floor plates, which now will let me create some actual floors. I probably don't want them all to be over the full level, but I definitely want the ground floor there. I'll just put maybe 1 or 2 in, and then I'm going to make it change. So, okay, so I've got then some enough building elements. I can now go to show mass by view settings, which essentially is going to turn the mass off. So if you see in shaded view, the mass element there, oh no, it's not hidden, why isn't it? Let's just double check that, sorry. Yeah, my massing is still there. Sorry, let's just, sorry, doing this the slow way. One thing they've changed here, I'm just going to turn this off in object properties, also your view settings. You can just hide the mass that way, and there we are. So I just wanted to show you without the massing those elements that it's created. And so the walls there could have been done better. I didn't think too much about the location line. That was stupid of me. So I'm going to delete those. I'm trying to go too quickly here. A bit of thought doesn't hurt. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I just want to make them a little bit, there's one thing I know is going to mess things up if I don't fix it now, that's all. So I'm just going to delete those and make them again. So, okay, so here you've got the mass element again, and what I forgot when I was making the walls was that it's often better if you set the location line to finish face interior, so that then it goes outside the mass, not inside it. So you can see there that just is going to make the floors and everything else look better as well. That's it. So just easy thing to fix, but I wanted to make sure. Okay, so sorry, back to here now, and so you can see I've got this mass-based set of walls and floors and roofs. So I want to just now modify these floors. So you probably realise already that these floors can be edited by going to Edit Boundary, and I'll just simplify this shape if it lets me. Yeah, it should let me trim. I don't know why it's oh, because that line is from a different one, so let's do it a different way. So trim to here should work. There we go. and now I can trim this one back, or even easier, delete that line and join a new one. So I shouldn't probably even be going over these steps, because I know you'd all be able to do this without too much trouble. And so we'll get rid of those, and so I've got my new floor shape. And back in the 3D view, let's do something different for this one. So back into plan view. Even though I don't have a plan for that level, I can still work on the floor that I have there. So let's get rid of the other side for this one. Oh, you don't have to have a plan for each level. So I do have levels, right, but I don't have associated views. Well, actually, if you don't know, I'll show you how to make those right after this. So I'll just join these together. Hopefully it'll let me trim this time. No. So do it this way, and that'll work. Okay, so I've just got a different floor shape there, and just close that off, and that's going to be enough for my floors. Okay, so like I said, to make the views, if you go to the View tab and then Plan Views, Floor Plan, and it'll, as long as you leave this thing down the bottom ticked, it'll just show you the levels that you don't already have floor plans for. So I'll just choose a couple of them, and so now I'll get new floor plans for those levels. So yeah, it can be very useful to know that. And so anyhow, now I've got you know, very basic interior. One little thing, but I can't help myself. I've got to fix that bottom floor, so I'll do that quickly and then show you the interior. Right, so I'll just do a quick camera view. In that area, looking towards the curtain wall maybe. And let's walk forward a little bit so we can see a little bit more of that nice height that I've got there. There we go. And maybe just, just look up. I won't stretch that, I'll just use the look option. And so I've got you know, a fairly basic interior there that I might want to start investigating in terms of you know, the relationship with materials and lighting. So I'm going to save this now as just as a project file, and I really should make a new folder for this. And well, actually, I'm going to put the other thing to do there. So let's call it Loftus Street. And let's just call it abstract example. I'll copy this all over to the same folder as everything else. Okay, so hopefully that's maybe shown you a couple of things in Revit that you hadn't seen before. And so now I'm going to go to the main menu, Export, and then FBX. Now, don't worry. Essentially, yep. Yep. So if you haven't seen that format before, it is there just to take it into 3D Studio Max, exactly. And then if we go in here to the main menu, References, and then File Link Manager. Now, I'm just going to do one thing first. Normally, you'll have already had this set, but I'm going to just change my project folder. The button I clicked on up on the main Quick Access toolbar there is your project folder button. And I'll then go to the same folder, Loftus Street, and I'm actually going to make a folder within that for 3ds Max files, because it gets a bit messy otherwise. Okay, so just make sure it's pick that up when you do that. And now I can go to References, File Link Manager, File, and browse to find the file where I've saved it. And here the preset I'm using combined by family type is a very good one. Okay, so there we are. I've got now the model coming across into Revit Studio Max, which is half the battle. And you can see there that the sun now is visible in 3ds Max, something that you can't see quite often in Revit. Now the display here is going quite slowly because of the all the fancy graphics it's trying to do. I'm going to right click on this realistic setting up here and just set it back to shaded so that I can then see the model without all that lighting and other things that are getting in the way. Okay, and then now this is where it'll maybe seem like a lot to take in. I'm going to go fairly quickly, but I will show you every step. And we're going to be doing this over and over again until you get it, so don't worry if it seems like a lot. Under the rendering menu, and then environment is where you get the MR physical sky. It's always good to check that, and so that will not work if everything else isn't set up properly. You can see here that I've got funny looking material previews, so that's telling me something is wrong as well. So I should have shown you the material editor button on the main toolbar is this one with the sphere and the checkerboard, and this is one you'll be using a lot as well. So I've got those two things open, and now I'm going to drag the MR Physical Sky, you can see here, over to that material editor.
MR is the mental array.
Exactly, it just means mental array. And Physical Sky just means it's meant to be physically accurate. Don't worry about that too much, just think of it as your sky. And so here I need to check my rendering engine under the rendering menu, render setup, and then going to the bottom of this rollout, you've got assign renderer, where you can see the default scanline renderer is still set, so I've got to hit browse and change that to mental array. To mental array, yes. Yeah. Yeah. It does, yeah. So these things, as you use them more, they will be fairly familiar. And so I always just check that file is there. So you can see here that the file that is shown in file name there is the one that's in that also in that folder there. So I'll cancel this. I don't actually need to choose that because it's going to be able to find it. And so now I can close those two things. Type C on the keyboard, and that will put the camera view into the viewport. Back to rendering, and then exposure control. And I'm going to choose from the exposure control drop down there, MR photographic exposure control. And then below that, you've got the option to select a preset. I'm going to choose indoor daylight, and just hit render preview. And you can see that it is giving me something. It's maybe a little bit too bright. So I'm going to fine tune this by going to exposure value, and I'm just going to tone this down by increasing that value. And you can see that's going to reduce the brightness overall. Okay, so now if I go to render, you can see it's actually giving me something. That's right. So that's, and there's a reason for that. So I want that to have the framing now. So that's the last thing I'll show you, how to bring that across. So firstly, I'm just going to save this Revit Studio Max file, just using save as. And I don't need to change the folder here because it's been set by the project folder I made earlier. So I'm just going to call this abstract design. Okay, so now I want to go back to Revit and fix up that curtain wall. So hopefully you've done this before. When you select an entire curtain wall, you can always go into the type and define the mullions in there. So I've got the grids down here, so I'm just going to set interior type for both of those to, well, let's just go for the big ones for now. I normally don't use these because they're too chunky, but I know they'll work. So both of those interior types I'm just setting to mullions.
So even though it showed up because you didn't set it, it didn't come across.
Yeah, well, it had the grid, but not the mullions.
Right.
So the divisions, and so the glass is there, but it's hard to see. So now with the mullions, it will be much more apparent that it's there. And so I'm just going to again save this file. Back to the main menu. Oh, sorry. Firstly, before I export again, I'm switching to the camera view. That's an important thing to always remember. No, I don't always. So then to, again, export FBX. You might have noticed before, I didn't change anything when I went to export here, and that was deliberate. So it means that now I can again do the same thing and just click save, and it should overwrite the previous one that I had. And that's exactly what I want it to do. Back into 3ds Max now, and then just on the main menu, again, references, file link manager, and then here, it's not the file button this time, but the file tab shows the previously linked file. And yep, so then reload, yeah, a bit like XREFs if you've used them before. And then now I'm going to tick these two options. I'll explain why later, but for now, just remember that. So if I hit OK, I should get the changes. I can't see them until I re-render in the rendered views, but here in the shaded view you can see that the changes have come through. I'll just do a render preview, and you'll see we'll get those visible, and obviously in the full render as well. So even when you don't have very much, you can set that up and then just keep working away in either program, and you know everything's going to be tied together. You need to be a little bit on top of the file management, and you'll see sometimes the links break down. I was showing you with that environment, but it's more of a problem with materials, especially when you start making your own and using your own maps and things like that. But I can show you it's easy to, if it goes wrong, repair that link and get it all working again. Okay, so anyhow, that should give you a good idea of the process and the main steps. So I'll just finish that recording and get that to you. Half an hour.